So Satan spake, and him Beelzebub thus answered: Leader of those armies bright, which but the omnipotent none could have foiled. If once they hear that voice, their liveliest pledge of hope in fears and dangers, heard so oft in worst extremes, and on the perilous edge of battle when it raged, in all assaults this surest signal, they will soon resume new courage and revive. Though now they lie growling and prostrate on yon lake of fire, as we erewhile, astounded and amazed, no wonder, fallen such a pernicious height. So, what do you understand by these lines? It's very
Ma'am,
clear, very
Satan,
easy.
yes,
One by
ma'am.
one, one by one.
Uh, मैम हाँ
बोलो
तो
बोलो।
सेटन बोलता है बेelzebub को और बेelzebub बोलता है कि अगर तुम स्पीच दोगे और इनसे बात करोगे तो इनकी होप्स वापस से रिवाइव हो जाएंगी और फिर क्या बोलता है वो अम, और भी कुछ बोलता है मतलब बेसिकली उसका मकसद ये होता है ना बोलने का कि स्पीच देने के लिए कुछ करो स्पीच देने के लिए और जो ये लोग जो ना फॉलन एंजल्स है बाकी वो वहाँ पे ना फायरी लेक में है और बेसिकली इनको वापस से होपफुल बनाने के लिए जो भी ये बोलते हैं
Next.
मैम चेतन ने जब खत्म किया तो बिल्कुल उसको आंसर देता है कि आप लीडर हो दिस आर्मीज राइट के which 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 but the omnipotent none could have foiled. The omnipotent he's talking about the God that which none could have, I don't know, have foiled. What foiled, ma'am? Actually foiled. I
The
think
attempt
जिनको ये
that they
clear
made, the bid that they made, it was foiled. Army
it was
tried to attack God, but that bid was foiled. Foiled means stopping,
if one
hampering it,
now if
foiling.
to them if they once hear your voice their lively was a pledge of hope in fears and dangers इस danger में भी उनकी जो hope है वो regain हो जाएगी here so often in worst extremes जो इस extreme danger में आपकी voice सुनेंगे and on the previous edge of battle and on the edge of battle when we will start fighting against and God in all assaults this surest signal they will soon resume new courage and revive though now they lie growling and prostrate on your lake of fire इस lake of fire पे जो अभी हम हैं दो की उनकी सारी आपकी ये सुन के सारी उनकी जो होप है वो रिवाइव हो जाएगी as we while astounding and amazed no wonder वो इतनी हाइट से फॉल होने के बाद भी आपकी ये सुनने के बाद ये ना आपको होप उनकी उनमें रिगेन करोगे वो लड़ने के लिए फिर से रेडी हो जाएंगे
Very good. Do you see your progress? How many lines you were able to figure out yourself? Good. Also, you can by this also figure out that there is a difference between the language used for Beelzebub and the language used for Satan. It's not very easy for you to figure out what Satan says, but you very easily figure out what Beelzebub has to say.
yes बेelzebub को सिंपल इंग्लिश दे दी
सिंपल इंग्लिश दे दी है या क्यों दिया बेल्ज़ेबub को सिंपल इंग्लिश क्योंकि सेटन को खड़ा किया हुआ है अगेंस्ट गॉड सेटन वर्सेस गॉड so the language is also of epic proportion so for
कॉम्प्लेक्स
that
बना
language
सकते
to
हैं
be epic it's epic and poetic but the language of Beelzebub is very simple prosaic so you're able to figure it out quickly very easily. Now tell me, so we don't have just two languages. We have one spoken by Beelzebub, we have second spoken by Satan, and we have third spoken by the narrator. What kind of a language does the narrator speak?
नहीं मुझे लगता है ज्यादा टफ नैरेटर ने बोली है
It's almost close. Satan's and narrator's languages are very close. This is why it's said Blake says accuses him of siding with Satan, and he himself being the Satan, playing the Satan, the hero of the text. He scarce had ceased when the spear fiend was moving toward the shore, his ponderous shield, ethereal temper, massy, large, and round, behind him cast. The broad circumference hung on his shoulders like the moon whose orb through optic glass of Tuscan artist views at evening from the top of Fiesole, or in Voldarno to descry new lands, rivers or mountains in her spotty globe. What does this mean?
It starts like yes, when the
शील्ड के
Satan's
बारे में बात कर रहे
Oh,
हैं जो
yes.
sword और शील्ड होता है
So now
का
he is
shield.
giving the description of the shield, and he again has to give the same epic proportion to it because it's an epic poem. Epic proportion will be extra large size, larger than life. Now he is trying to compare the shield with hung on his
moon orb
shoulders like the moon. Now the size of moon.
hmm.
So think of the ocean. Remember the ocean? Put your mics on mute because I can hear my voice and I hate my voice. So, you already saw that Satan is large like a whale. Leviathan, the size of a Leviathan, is the size of Satan. And the rest is fiery ocean. Remember this part? He is Satan, the rest is fiery ocean. Now, in comparison to that, think of the size of moon. Moon is only a shield for Satan. Moon is only a shield for Satan. So the moon is small and earth is larger. So think of Satan of the size of earth. Oops. No. Of the size of earth. So you have to compare the size of Satan to the size of earth so that you can compare the size of the shield to the size of moon. What else can you figure out? So what is the optic glass the Tuscan artist views?
telescope
Telescope. Who is the Tuscan artist?
Galileo
Oh,
शायद
Galileo.
homework done?
पढ़ा था थोड़ा सा
Mhm. Galileo's optic glass. Now, had Beelzebub been given these lines, what would he say?
The Galileo symbol.
Through telescope he views. That's enough. But through optic glass, the Tuscan artist views. I'm talking about that moon whose orb, I told you last time, orbit. Orbit means the pathway a moon covers. Whose orb the Tuscan artist views with his optic glass. At evening from the top of Fiesole or in Voldarno to descry new lands, rivers, or mountains in her spotty globe. Tell me, tell me, tell me. Top of Fiesole or Voldarno.
जगह नहीं
Hmm?
और ये सारी जगह है ना मतलब
Mm-hmm.
मैंने सर्च किया था एक एक का तो ये जगह है और स्पॉटी ग्लोब ये है मतलब जो छोटा वाला पार्ट होता है ना इसका जहाँ से देखते हैं आई पीस शायद वही है शायद
Okay. Of the telescope.
यस मैम
Okay. So this spotty globe that spots new lands, that spots new rivers and mountains.
नाम इन जगहों का मतलब कोई स्पेसिफिक ये नाम क्यों दिया मतलब ना
These
यही
are on
जगह क्यों
heights.
सेलेक्ट किया कोई स्पेसिफिक ओके
Mhm. From the top of Fiesole or Valdarno, because they are on heights and telescope is required to be placed on a place where there are no objects that hamper the sight. So they are on heights, Valdarno and Fiesole. His spear, now we are done with his shield. The next comes his spear.
There.
So he has again to give it larger than life size. So let's see what he compares spears with. His spear to equal which the tallest pine, hewn on Norwegian hill. Hewn?
जगह
No.
नहीं
Hewn, like his spear to equal the tallest pine hewn. Like growing.
Is it a
No
verb?
meaning
Is
to
it a
hewn.
noun? You have to figure that out.
Verb.
क्या है?
verb
Verb.
Verb. What does it mean?
to chop or cut with a wood or coal
Okay.
with an axe, stick or other tool.
Past of hew. Hew means to cut or chop. So it appears that his shield, now we are talking about his spear. His spear is one. I don't know if I can draw it, but I'll try.
मैम illustration artist होना चाहिए आपको.
नहीं, मैं पहले थी, फिर मैंने लिटरेचर पढ़ना शुरू किया. ड्राइंग पहले थी, फिर छूट गई, लिटरेचर से छूट गई. His spear was
Same.
like that, as if it was taken from the tallest pine, means the pine wasn't broken, but the whole of the pine was taken. The tallest pine that was chopped on Norwegian hills to be the mast. The mast is this portion. It's called the mast. So this portion was not cut out, but the whole tree itself. This is a whole length of pine tree. So what's the height of pine tree becomes the length of his spear, only to give it larger than life appearance, and this is what also gives the poem the epic proportions. Okay. To be the mast of some great emerald were but a wand.
मैम एमराल्ड का मुझे तब मीनिंग नहीं मिला और मुझे समझ भी नहीं आया.
Emerald तो पता नहीं.
The rest of
Wand
it,
पता है.
were but a wand. It's easy to understand.
वो उसके लिए एक wand थी. Of some great emerald were but a wand. He walked with the face.
क्या बोल रहे हो? मुझे आवाज नहीं आ रही है.
मैं पढ़ रही हूँ, मैं कुछ बोल ही नहीं रही हूँ.
मैम ही वर्क विद सपोर्ट वाला ना, उसके आगे मुझे मतलब पता है, लेकिन इस स्पेसिफिक लाइन का मुझे नहीं पता. मतलब शायद ही किसी के साथ कंपैरिजन किया है कि कोई इंसान, मतलब आई डोंट नो.
अच्छा, आप अमेरल का मीनिंग बता रहे हैं. आप वो छोड़ दो,
नहीं, मैं
उसके
बोल रही हूँ
बगैर
मुझे
बताओ.
बस उसी का.
The rest of
उसके
it.
आगे
उसके आगे.
ही वर्क विद, जो उसका वो था ना स्पेयर, उसकी मदद से वो चल रहा था विद अनईजी स्टेप्स ऑन द ये बर्निंग जो भी था ना, मतलब जो रास्ता था वहाँ पे सब पे आग थी ना, तो उस पे सपोर्ट ले रहा था. नॉट लाइक दो स्टेप्स ऑफ हेवंस अजूर. हेवंस अजूर हो गया ब्लू. हेवंस अजूर मतलब वो तो स्काई आएगा ना. आई डोंट अंडरस्टैंड यहाँ पे.
So this emerald, like you saw in the previous lines, the spellings are different, but you happen to understand it by means of its pronunciation. Like horror was HORROUR. We figured it out. It's horror. Emerald, you're not able to figure out. Okay? And you were searching AMMIRAL.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it clear now? To be the mast of some great emerald were but a wand, but for him it was just a wand, a small stick in his hand. So the length of pine tree was just a stick for him, which he used to support his uneasy steps because he was thrown from such a height over the burning Mal, not like those steps on heaven's azure, and the torrid climb smote on him sore besides. So these steps he is talking about, what kind of steps are these? These are not the steps that you generally take on heaven's azure. He's comparing the land that he walks on. Now the lands in heaven is different, and walking on them was so easy. Like it was a fleet. Fleet means smooth walk. You could flee. It was fleet. Why do we use fleet with ship? Fleet is a group of ship, right? Fleet. But in verb form, like we use with uh, what term do we use with angels?
Gliding.
Hmm. So the reason is because of it being
Smoothly.
smooth. So it wasn't like those steps on heaven's azure and the torrid climb. Apart from that, it was one. It was on burning fire that he was walking, and apart from that, wasn't just that, but he was being smote. Torrid climb was smote is past of smite. Smite is smite is
Mm.
smitten, smote, smite.
Like,
Sorry. It was biting him sore. The climate was so harsh, so torrid, so hot. It was smite. He was smitten by it, that he became sore. Besides, means apart from that, his steps were hard to take, and also the climate was so hard to bear. Vaulted with fire. Vaulted means above him. Fire above, fire below, fire besides. Vaulted with fire. Natheless he so endured. Natheless,
nevertheless,
yes. He so endured, he bore it. What's the other word for endure? Bearing and,
bearing.
sorry,
Mm, bearing. I certainly bearing.
bearing,
Buckler.
enduring, being patient. Till on the beach of that inflamed sea, he stood and called his legions, angel forms, who lay entranced, thick as autumnal leaves that strew the brooks in Volumbrosa, where their Trurian shades high over
Over.
Art.
arched, overarched embower or scattered sedge afloat. When the fierce winds, Orion armed, hath vexed the Red Sea coast, whose waves overthrew Cyrus
Before.
and his Memphian chivalry, while with perfidious hatred they pursued the sojourners of Goshen, who beheld, the rest cannot be read. So the language that you see is different of the narrator. I have erased that. The narrator, the language of Satan, the language of Milton is all different. So what we see here is that in whenever the narrator is speaking, he is comparing this epic with the epics that he has read from Greek or Latin. I gave it the example so far. Now, whenever you are reading the narrator's part, you will have to find out what is he talking about when he is talking about Vallombrosa, Etrurian shades, high overarched embower or scattered sedge afloat with when with fierce wind Orion armed hath vexed the Red Sea coast. This is some epic he is talking about. One epic. Hmm? I will not give you the background to this so that you figure it out yourself. I showed you how you need to figure it out. I did show it to you.
Yes, ma'am.
So you will have to check. How do you study poetry? How do you read it? How do you get into the depths of everything? So now we also found out. So the thing the teacher will help you with it is the teacher will help you grow. So from line by line analysis, now we are coming to understanding language. So I'll teach you language. The rest you can figure out. Not all of it, I'm saying today. You will do this homework. What is the epic behind it? But I will tell you that now on you have to keep your eyes open for the difference in languages of the narrator, Satan, Beelzebub, and the rest of the characters. What you find in narrator is that there is a mention and comparison of like the weapons. What is he comparing it with? Or previously, what did you see? He was talking about the size of Satan. What did he compare it with? Leviathan.
Literature.
Leviathan and an
Ye-
island that seamen mistook to be an island and would um,
Earth,
um,
moon,
sorry
earth, size of earth.
they would harbor there in this part because they mistook Leviathan as an island, and same was the size of Satan. The examples he is giving you is that he is trying for you to make things imaginable for you, to make this imagination possible for you. I will give you many articles later on to read. The readings that will tell you how other critics of the time studied this and compared his imagination with the imagination of other writers, or what all do they have to say about the language use of Milton. So when we talk about the languages of Milton, it's not just the language of narrator, it's also the language of Satan because it's Milton writing. It's also the language of Beelzebub because it's Milton writing, right? All the characters are written by Milton. But how is it that that narrator's language is different from Milton's language? When narrator also has distances from the reader, and Milton himself as an author distances and gives information or is recreating his imagination, then how is a narrator different from an author? Where do you study this difference between a narrator and an author? This is studied later on in post-structuralist studies, where this was differentiated that a text was taken as a text in its own form. It has its own form and can be studied in its own form, and you don't require an author to understand a text. So, if you don't require an author to understand a text, then why the author? Why do we need an author then? And is anybody else required for a reader, or does he only require a text? Within the text, you find many voices. Who writes about these voices? It's Roland Barthes, who talks about these voices and says that when you have a text in your hand, this author has no existence. It's your text. The text has a plurality in itself, and you can derive as many meanings as possible, like we are doing. Milton is not holding your finger and trying to take you only in the parts that he wants to take you, like the meaning we are dealing with. We are trying to figure out the political implications of the text on the one hand side. On the other hand side, we are figuring out the textual meaning out of it. But there will be third, fourth, sixth, seventh reading of it, where we can do a feminist study of what he is writing. Later on, we'll do that. When you find that the character he is sketching of Eve is very different, because you find that he is somewhere sexist whenever he's talking about Eve. Similarly, we will also find that he is also being a white writer who is writing about, say, race. So if he is making excessive use of the blackness of the skin of somebody, we find he is being a racist. So, what did we do to the author? Roland Barthes says this is the death of the author. And at the same moment, what takes birth? Birth of the text. So he says whenever he writes the first word, the second follows, third follows, each word is actually a little death of the author, because he is like he evaporated into these words when he converted his imagination into the signifiers that are there in front of you. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
This is theory part. This is theory applied. Figure the meaning out on your own. This is not the most difficult part that we study in literature, but this criticism. What do other critics have to say about Paradise Lost in the same time, say up till 1700s? Then what do these critics have to say from 1700 to 1900? And then when theory comes, 1970s onwards or 60s onwards, what do theorists have to say about it? Okay, let's take it forward in our next lecture. That's all for today. Any questions? Finish this passage though. Finish this paragraph. His case has had ceased when the superior fiend. Okay, finish this one. I'll begin with the next in my next lecture. Let me share this one with you. You will have to read till. mm yeah, so these words are already italicized in the text. That means you can clearly find them out if you double click the word, copy it, paste it on next tab, and you will find out the background to Vallombrosa. Type along with it, epic or myth, myth or epic. Thick as Autumnal Leaves is one of the critical essays written in 1976 by J.P. Holoka, where he studies the structure and generic potential of an epic simile. Okay, the same words have been used in Milton. Then famous Vallombrosa is a simile also. He's comparing it with something. So what is the Vallombrosa simile in Paradise Lost? Then Etrurian shades, Orion, Pizarrus and Memphian chivalry. What are these chivalries? Sojourns of Goshen. Then from the safe shore there floating carcasses and broken chariot wheels, so thick bestrown abject and lost lay these, covering the flood, under amazement of their hideous change. They see everything afloat in this flooded lake of fire. Under amazement of their hideous change, they are amazed by the hideous change. This can be another example of an adjective with a noun. He called so loud that all the hollow deep of hell resounded. Princes, potentates, warriors, the flower of heaven once yours, now lost. If such astonishment as this can seize eternal spirits, or have ye chosen this place after the toil of battle, this is TOIL, toil of battle to repose your wearied virtue, this is virtue, for the ease you find to slumber here as in the vales of heaven? Or in this abject posture have ye sworn to adore the conqueror? So he asked them, have you chosen to accept the defeat, or do you swear that you will not accept defeat? who now beholds cherub and seraphs. I told you these are the levels of various levels of angels, rolling in the flood with scattered arms and on signs, till anon his swift pursuers from heaven gates discerned advantage, and descending treed us down, thus trooping, or with linked thunderbolts transfix us to the bottom of this gulf. So he is telling them about what God has done to them, that he was pursued by these fallen angels, and now together they are here in this gulf, in the bottom of this gulf. And then lastly he asks them, awake, arise, or be forever fallen. Either you start and fight back again, or be forever fallen, or be in this fallen state forever. The next I'll take up on Monday, but you will do this in detail on your own. Okay? And you will give me more meanings, not just the political background to it, but try figuring out what is the philosophical background of this time. Who are the philosophers writing in this time? For this, you can check out this book, David Dege's Critical History, no, not Critical History, Critical Approaches to Literature. There is a chapter in it. This chapter, you may not be able to find this here, but if you want a PDF of this text, you will have to go to libgen.li, type critical approaches to literature, critical approaches to literature, click on libgen scitech, search, look for David Dege here, David Dege's Critical Approaches to Literature, 36 MBs, click on page, whichever link you can, then right click on get, and then save link as. This is the book and the PDF will be downloaded. In that you have a chapter where it talks about, deals with 16th, 17th century philosophy. It tells you what philosophy is going on in this time. There is a political philosophy that is very much prominent in this time. Try figuring out if Milton has read that philosophy or not. If yes, tell me if you find traces of it in this text. If not, tell me why not. That's the end of the lecture today.